She lived in the same house for 60 years. What we found in her basement changed everything. When 85-year-old Margaret passed away, my family thought we were just cleaning out another old house. But what we discovered hidden behind a false wall in her basement didn't just change everything we thought we knew about our quiet neighbor, it changed our entire community forever. I'm David, and Margaret Chen had been our next door neighbor for my entire 32 years of life. She moved into that modest two-story house in 1964, fresh from Taiwan with her husband James. After he died in 1987, she lived there completely alone for nearly 40 years. Margaret was the definition of a quiet neighbor. She tended her small garden, collected her mail, and waved politely from her porch. She seemed to live on almost nothing. We'd see her clipping coupons and walking to the discount grocery store with her little cart. When she passed last month, we assumed she'd left behind nothing but old furniture and memories. Margaret's niece, Linda, asked if my family could help clear out the house before putting it on the market. We expected a typical elderly person's home, outdated furniture, stacks of newspapers, maybe some old photographs. The main floors were exactly what we expected, but when we got to the basement, something felt different. It was unusually clean and organized for a basement that belonged to an 85-year-old woman who rarely had visitors. That's when my teenage daughter Emma noticed something odd. "Dad, this wall looks weird," she said, pointing to the far corner. The paneling didn't quite match the rest of the basement, and there was a small gap at the bottom. I pressed against it, and to our shock, an entire section of the wall swung inward. It was a hidden door. Behind that false wall was a room none of us expected. It was Margaret's workshop, but not for crafts or hobbies. The walls were lined with dozens of handmade quilts, each one absolutely stunning. Intricate patterns, perfect stitching, colors that seemed to glow even in the dim basement light. But these weren't just any quilts. Each one had a small tag sewn into the corner with a name and date. For Jennifer's wedding, 1995. For the Morrison family fire, 1988. For baby Michael's christening, 2003. Linda gasped and picked up one quilt. "I remember this," she whispered. "When my son was born, premature and spent months in the hospital, someone anonymously donated the most beautiful baby blanket to the NICU. The nurses said it came from a guardian angel in the community. We found over 200 quilts in that room. Each one represented someone in our community who had faced hardship, new babies, house fires, deaths in the family, medical emergencies. But that wasn't all. In an old filing cabinet, we found Margaret's meticulous records. She had been tracking every family in our neighborhood for 60 years. Not in a creepy way, in a caring way. She knew when people lost jobs, when children were born, when families struggled. But the most shocking discovery was a stack of bank receipts. For decades, Margaret had been anonymously paying medical bills, school fees, and utility bills for families in crisis. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars over 60 years. Here's how she did it. Margaret had created a network with local hospitals, schools, and utility companies. When families couldn't pay their bills, Margaret would quietly cover them through anonymous donations. The families never knew where the help came from. Linda started crying when she found a folder labeled Chen Family Emergency Fund. Inside were copies of receipts showing that Margaret had been secretly funding a college scholarship program at our local high school for 25 years. We realized that Margaret wasn't living on almost nothing because she was poor. She was living on almost nothing because she was giving everything away. Linda and I decided the community deserved to know the truth. We called a neighborhood meeting and shared what we'd found. The room was silent as we explained Margaret's secret life. Then people started speaking up. Mrs. Rodriguez remembered when her house burned down in 1992, someone had anonymously paid for 6 months of temporary housing. The Williams family shared how their son's leukemia treatment was mysteriously covered by an anonymous benefactor in 1998. Family after family realized they had been touched by Margaret's secret generosity. The quiet woman who waved from her porch had been the guardian angel our community never knew existed. But the most incredible part was a letter we found addressed to my community. Margaret had written, "I came to America with nothing but hope. This neighborhood gave me a home, friends, and a purpose. Everything I earned because of the kindness you showed a young immigrant woman. This was simply my way of saying thank you." Margaret's house sold quickly, but Linda donated all the money from the sale to create the Margaret Chen Community Care Fund. The 200 quilts, we returned them to the families she had made them for, along with letters explaining who their anonymous benefactor had been. Our neighborhood has been transformed by learning Margaret's secret. People are more connected, more caring, more aware of each other's struggles. We've continued her tradition. When someone faces hardship, the community quietly steps in to help. Margaret Chen taught us that heroism isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's an elderly woman in a basement, quietly stitching together not just fabric, but the very fabric of a community. We all have neighbors we barely know. What if one of them is your community's secret guardian angel? What if you could be someone else's? Share this story if it reminds you that kindness often works best in the shadows.